this war, of course, has had devastating effects. So we are in the second week now where we are witnessing this carry on. The fallout has already been immense as far as both Russia as well as the rest of the world is concerned, which is going to face different levels of impacts for various reasons, because this war has an impact across the board with respect to the economic impact. Of course, the human capital, the human cost also is extremely high at this point in time. But what exactly is going to happen going forward in terms of the effects of this war on various fronts? To understand all of that, joining me is Maximilian Hess, Fellow Foreign Policy Research Institute, here on the broadcast. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Your first reaction or understanding of how bad the situation is going to be, because as far as Russia and Ukraine are concerned, it's going to have ramifications across the board, whether we look at supply disruptions, whether we look at the wheat production, which accounts for about 30%. What would you say are going to be the most damaging ones?
Yes, you're right. The economic impacts are going to be widespread around the world. One is going to be the fact that the Russian government is going to default on its debts and engage in a series of strategic defaults on its debts as well. This will simply increase market turbulence, but this could prove really critical in a time in which commodities prices are spiking. It's actually not too dissimilar a situation to that we saw in 1997, 1998 with the East Asian financial crisis, which then spilled into Russia. This could go the other way around. Agricultural commodity prices will be particularly high. The Kremlin and the Russian state has taken control of a lot of that industry in recent years, so has more ability to turn on and off the taps to allies and partners in exchange for political concessions. We'll also see impact on metals markets. Of course, hydrocarbons, oil and gas has been most clear, but even smaller areas that for example, could particularly impact India is the diamond industry, where Russia exports a lot of diamonds to then be polished and refined in India, but that is done through Russian state companies, and there could be payment delays there. So there will be a really large number of impacts, and then it's really the secondary impacts from that general market turbulence all around that could cause, as of yet, unforeseen disruption.
Yes, absolutely. Like you pointed out, there's going to be primary and secondary impacts felt across the country. With respect to the sanctions, I wanted to ask you, of course, the sanctions are aimed at disrupting the Russian economy, completely, destroying it, at least for the time being. But the issue is that it is going to, at some point in time, come back and hit the countries also that have imposed them, as well as the other countries around as well. So the sanctions are not just going to hurt Russia, but hurt other economies as well. And then the question about how long will these sanctions last and how long can they last is the other one. So how do you explain all of this in terms of what that is going to really lead to?
Sure. There's sort of three real precedents for when we've seen this level of sanctions happen. The most recent one is on Venezuela, which still has not been integrated back into the global economy. And although it had real oil disruptions and continues to do so, the economy has learned to deal with that. There's the potential for a new Iran deal that could replace some of the crucial Russian supply in the coming days as well. The other two examples are from 1941 with sanctions on Japan. That only ended after the end of World War II, obviously. And the other is Russia's cut off from financial markets in 1918 when it repudiated its debts as part of the communist revolution and was kept out of global capital markets for 20 years until the beginning of World War I. So, these are likely to have real tertiary and wider impacts. I think it's quite clear, however, not only the West, not only the US and NATO, as some people have said, have decided this is a cost we have to bear in the 21st century when Russia is the country willing to kill its fraternal Ukrainian neighbors in such a war of aggression. Now, the real concerns here are how much support will China give Russia in getting around the sanctions, and incredibly disturbingly, although India has long had a good policy of neutrality and been fairly diplomatic in balancing Russian-Western issues, there are reports today that the Indian government is looking to set up a method to get around the Western sanctions. But again, they're not just Western. Singapore and Switzerland have even joined these sanctions, right? But India, given its economic trade with Russia on agriculture and on fuel, could offer the Russians a lifeline temporarily by doing this.
Yes, that's right. And what about the impact on Russia? Because we're already beginning to see, extreme, the ruble, for example, completely crashing. The central bank there has increased interest rates by double at this point in time. In terms of how this is going to impact the Russian economy, with Putin on one hand saying that we are ready to, face whatever it is and we will be able to get through it, we'll be able to deal with it. How right is he in actually saying that? Or is he just, just saying it, saying one thing and actually something else is going to happen?
Putin does claim to have a PhD in economics, but I don't think he's really aware of how bad this is going to be. The promise that he has often made to the Russian populace is that in exchange for an erosion of human rights and democracy under my rule, that I will offer stability, decent economy, and the opposite of the 1990s that are such a bugbear for so many Russians because of the economic and quality of life disasters that the Russian people experienced after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And all I can say is it is all but guaranteed that the Russian quality of life and economy has, in the last 72 hours, already been plunged back into the level of the 1990s, and getting it out from there is not possible with these sanctions remaining.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for joining us and giving us that perspective.